Welcome. We're on the red couch with Elizabeth Melendez Fisher, founding president and CEO of Selah Freedom, a nonprofit organization based in Sarasota, focusing on ending human trafficking and sexual exploitation on Florida's Gulf Coast. Elizabeth, I am thrilled to have you on the red couch.
Thank you. Excited to be here. Thanks.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, where did you come from, your education?
Where did you come from? You know what? I moved down here just like 4 years ago, so it's extremely unusual that I'm doing what I'm doing right now, because I came from Chicago. Literally, my husband and I wanted to come and chill out, relax, get off, the corporate hamster wheel, and just take it easy. So lo and behold, I did not come down here. Like, some people are like, oh, did you always know you wanted to be involved in human trafficking? It's like, no. I moved here, realized it was an issue, and there you go.
So how did you find out it was an issue? How did that become?
Well, I came down here, and like within the first year, I have a bunch of girlfriends from around the country that do national speaking and different conferences.
Right.
And they're like, let's do one in Sarasota. We've never done one in Sarasota. They're all women's leadership, women's empowerment, women's refreshment, things like that. And so we started building a leadership team, and my one girlfriend said, hey, just find out what's happening there that no one talks about, because it's always good to hold up a charity. And most towns hold up the same charities over and over. So start asking people, hey, I'm new. What's really happening here that no one talks about? And so we find out, well, it's a hub for sex trafficking, and we're not talking international children. We're talking our own local boys and girls being sold for sex every day on our streets, and no one's talking about it. Florida's number 3 in the country. Our region's number 3 in the state of Florida. And so we heard that and we said, done, we'll raise money for that. But yet there was nothing to raise money for because no one was doing anything about it.
So it's happening right here in our own backyard.
Right here.
And how is it possible that nobody knew about it?
Well, you know what? It's one of those things of misidentification and eyes wide shut. Like, you see it every day that you don't even see it anymore. I think a lot of people, like when we moved down here, I'm like, wow, that 41 down by the airport, that's just a bunch of prostitutes. And what we didn't know is that a lot of those girls and boys out there are underage. They're not there on their own free will. They're not prostitutes. They're forced and coerced into the sex trade. And they are turning over these tricks to give the money off to someone else that has ownership of them.
Wow.
I know. So it's not what you see. And as you learn more today, your eyes will be really open. And now when you drive around Sarasota and Bradenton, you'll be like, oh my goodness, because there's brothels everywhere. There's all kinds of stuff here.
So most people think that, children are kidnapped from other countries, which I know is also true, and brought to this country and then forced into the sex trade.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Human trafficking itself is such a huge industry. It's a $36 billion industry, or $35 billion. Drug trafficking is $36 billion. Human trafficking is now $35 billion. So internationally, it's just a huge moneymaker. In Europe, it's already surpassed drug trafficking. So there are international stories, international victims. But what we see right here in our own backyard is all domestic. And like the movie Taken, where everyone's like, oh my gosh, is it someone just driving by and they throw my kid in a van and drive away? No, like 10% of the cases are really of an abduction like that. The rest are just a vulnerable child and a horrible story, which I can share more.
So how does a child, boy or girl, become a victim?
Yeah.
Like, what's the typical story?
Yeah, and
if
it's
textbook.
It is. It's typical and it's textbook. And sadly, every person that we have dealt with, it's been their story. It's a child that was sexually abused at home or by someone they know. Very often in our cases, because people are like, are you guys faith-based? Are you? And I said, you know what, we are. You come and you decide what you want for yourself. We are not a faith-based organization because people have come in, their pastors abused them for years. Their parents would drop them off every Tuesday night at their Bible study teacher, and he would molest them every Tuesday night, and they would go home, and they're told by, a mother's boyfriend or an uncle, and it's just, you don't tell anyone. You keep the secret. And that's very across the board. Socioeconomically, it's happening everywhere. It's 1 out of 3 little girls right now and 1 out of 5 boys.
So how do they get from being dropped off every Tuesday night to being
So
in
majority
this
of them, it starts as young as 3, 4, 5 years old. And so they keep the secret for years, and typically by around 11, 12, 13, they're like, I am out of here.
Yeah.
They find that they don't have to keep showing up for this. They don't have to just take it. And most of them, a good number will run away if it's that intense over that many years. And so statistically, what we have found is that within 48 hours, 80% of runaways are approached and coerced into some form of human trafficking.
Is it because they themselves are so vulnerable?
Yeah, they're homeless. So think about it. You have homeless children on the street.
Right.
They've never known how to take care of themselves. There are predators out there. It used to be like, stranger danger. Now you got these really, really wise, manipulative predators out there.
Like a sophisticated version.
Yeah, they hang out at bus stops looking for runaways. Hey, we saw write-ups in the Bradenton paper this last year. It started to get exposure about a couple that was hanging out in the Bradenton bus stop looking for kids. And they say what the kid needs. Oh my gosh, do you need a place to stay? Are you hungry? Did you run away? I bet it was bad at home. I know how to take care of you. I'll help you.
So they could try to convince the child that they're a friend, that they're
safe.
Actually helping them, that they're going to give them what they need.
Yeah, and so if it's not in the form of some sort of a parent that's pretending to be this covering, it's what the girls on the street will call a Romeo pimp. Someone that's like, hey, I'll be your boyfriend. I'll take care of you. I know it's rough out here, but I can help you. And so then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm loved for the first time. They've never felt loved. And they're like, oh, I have this covering now. It's either this safe sort of parent couple thing, or I got this guy that says he loves me and he chooses me. And he starts, a lot of times they groom them. They start getting their nails done, take care of them. And then after a little bit, they get them hooked on a drug, take them out on the streets, say, I need a little help with the bills. I'm going to need you to do this for me. And then the girls say just over time, you just get desensitized. Like you forget that it ever was any different.
The part that is, the whole thing is so incredibly difficult to even talk about. But the part that is so upsetting is that, like you said, at 12 or 13, they just figure, I'm out of here. And it's almost like there's this chance for a good life.
Yes.
Or something different.
Yes.
And then it's even worse.
It's worse. So they could sell them up to 15, 40 times a day. And one trafficker said he made $19,000 off a single person in a day. Yeah. So what happens is they eventually start to believe I'm not worth anything more. And this is what I'm destined for, and this is who I am. And you know what? I'll just try to, because what happens is it's almost like a brothel or a harem. They get a bunch of girls, and then it's like a pecking order, and the girl wants to be the bottom girl, because the bottom girl is the one he chooses and loves the most. And she's responsible. She takes the beating for the ones that don't perform. So in their mind, this is just their whole world. And so they don't even realize that, hey, my gosh, I could have something else. That's why for intervention, it's like 7 to 8 times before they'll even believe that they're ready for help, because they never have known. They've never known anything other.
Is that why it's so hard? Because people don't even believe that they are...
No, yeah.
They need help. They don't even feel like this is something... It's not like someone was... I don't even know how to explain it, but they've been brainwashed.
Brainwashed is exactly the word, like programmed. Yeah.
Programmed.
People are like, you have to deprogram them. I'm like, that's sort of it. Yeah, it's like coming out of a cult. Like your thinking is so upside down. You don't have any comprehension of truth whatsoever.
So how does Selah Freedom House, how do they get help? How are you helped from a lifetime of believing?
Well, I want to reemphasize the last thing you said, though, because now I want people to start thinking when they're driving down the street and they see someone walking on 41, usually we just dismiss that person and we're like, oh, there goes some prostitute. And if you start thinking, oh my gosh, I wonder what her story is. I guarantee you go back and every girl, it's like this. But how they come into our care, it's very much, like the whole domestic violence thing, the whole power and control wheel, a person will take 7 to 8 attempts at intervention before they're ready to receive help. A woman will come to shelter for her husband beating her 7 to 8 times before she finally leaves the guy. So it's the same sort of cycle. So we have a lot of points of entry, because what happens with these girls is typically when they're 12 to 18, they're kept pretty tight. It's hard to find them. They're starting more and more to get awareness around this, but they keep them hidden, and that's a market that's pretty strong, and they just, sort of underground. But by the time they're 18, 19, they will end up on a lot of drug charges. They'll end up in and out of jail for prostitution, sort of cycling through the jails. And this is why we've been partnering with law enforcement. We're breaking that cycle, because they're realizing, oh my gosh, these women are victims. We're like, yeah, so the guys that are squeaky clean, the guy's buying them, no record, the guy's selling them, no record. Meanwhile, the girls have like over 40 felonies in all these different areas. Because 3 prostitution charges equals a felony. So a lot of stuff on the rap sheets. And so now we're collaborating with the jails. We're collaborating with law enforcement. We're collaborating with a lot of different, there's outreach teams on the street. We have just one that we do ourselves. We have an arm, a law enforcement arm that she has her master's in criminal justice. She's out there training local law enforcement and helping them learn how to question the girls, because they haven't even learned, it's more they don't even believe that they are out there against their will. you have to almost confuse them to get them to say, you know, are you making this money? Are you making the money?
Right.
Well, no. Who gets your money? You know, so it's helping them realize, oh my gosh, I don't have anything. They're all homeless girls still dependent on an abuser.
So where do they live?
All over with the guys. Some say they stay in hotel rooms, they travel. You know, some of the girls that have come through our care had been on the streets since they were 11. Wow. And they've moved all over the states. They move them around. You spend a few nights in one town, they move them a few nights in the next town. It's not a normal life. And that's what's so different, what our staff says that's in the house right now, the residential staff. It's helping them to understand a new normal.
Right.
Because how you and I live life
right.
is so not normal to them.
Right.
Like, how odd is that?
Yeah. What does Salah mean?
Selah, we say, it's a Hebrew word, and we found it because it means to pause, to rest, or to reflect. It's actually like our logo is a musical rest symbol.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's the beauty of letting these girls come. The first stage of our program is really just that. It's a Selah. You come, you rest, you pause. For the first time in your life, we give you 4 weeks to just reflect.
Wow.
Are you ready to start a new life and walk into freedom?
So what is the recovery process like?
Well, when we started this whole journey, we were like, holy cow, you know, like you, like, what? You know, no one's doing anything. Now we know. And people kept coming up to me going, are you building the team for human trafficking? I'm like, sure we are. And so we really wanted to learn what's going to work and what are we doing? Because you can't just open a home and throw some girls in it without something that you know is going to be successful.
Right.
So national rescue agencies and FBI over the last 3 years, as we were just starting our alliances and all that, they said there's 2 in the country that do this well. They're like, if you want to do it right and you want to have successful outcomes, Atlanta or Iowa, those were the only 2 they would recommend.
And what's the process?
So we ended up coming into a formal organizational mentorship with the Atlanta organization. They've been doing it for over 12 years. And so they have, it's so great, because then you have, this works, this doesn't work. Here's our programming, try this, don't do this, we've tried this. It's so wonderful.
That is really helpful.
Oh my God. Otherwise, you're just throwing, darts at the wall and you're messing with people's lives. There's homes that have opened in Florida that they're closed already, and the word is, they've re-traumatized the victims. They traumatized their volunteers because they weren't prepared for what was coming in.
Right.
So the training that we have is pretty exceptional to know how to be ready for these girls. But the way they do it in Atlanta is a 3-stage restoration.
And it's a whole year process, right?
It's more than that. I mean, ultimately, we could walk with these girls for up to 2.5 years.
That's what I was confused about. I mean, even if you are recovering from any kind of trauma, I can't imagine it would only take a year.
Yeah, here's your 6 months, see ya. No, it's definitely,
Right.
we're not a halfway house. We're not a, hey, let me just hold your hand while you get on your feet. It's 2 to 4 weeks is stage 1.
Yeah.
And that's the Selah, come rest, come pause. And then if they make the commitment, because it has to be voluntary, you're not going to hold someone against their will. If they want to run, they're going to run. So that's why you want to have that assessment. I think the reason that Wellspring is so successful in Atlanta is the assessment. They will not take a girl that's not ready.
Yeah.
Because then you're just throwing resources against someone that can't receive it.
Right.
And so once they say yes, they enter into a 9 to 12 month residential program, which gives them all the amazing recovery. And it's everything from the first step, and this is what we have that they don't even have in Atlanta, which I'm like, oh, it's going to be so much better. Not better, but we're just excited. We're partnered with, I don't know if I told you this, Dr. Jason Quintal here. He's in Lakewood Ranch. Have you heard of him?
No.
Amazing. This man, he and some colleagues came up with this different type of, it's a technique, that he's a doctorate level, but it's a technique that they started using with the armed forces. So for the men that were coming back with severe PTSD, like, a car backfires, they're on the ground, they can't function in their families, and it's called rapid resolution. And so I am a master's level clinician, and all the talk therapy in the world is not going to reset these girls' trauma brains.
Yeah.
And so what he does is literally, it's only 3 sessions, and it takes the trauma in their brain, and it literally will do a reset. It will have their brain realize it is no longer happening and just clears it out so they can receive what we have coming for them.
That
so
sounds miraculous.
It is miraculous. We have one girl. We have this girl now that she's in our program. She's been in this for, 11, 12 years old, and she's, I can't say her age, but she has never been able to sleep in the dark. She has had such severe things happen to her that she's never been able to sleep in the dark. And after her second time with him, you only need 3 times with him, and then it's maybe every couple months just for a tweak. She's like, I'm sleeping in the dark.
Oh,
I'm no longer in fetal position. I wake up and I'm like,
wow.
and
That's
it doesn't
incredible.
go back. The trauma is just gone.
That is,
Isn't that amazing?
yeah, that sounds miraculous.
Yeah, so
Truly.
that's a huge part of our 9 to 12 month process.
Yeah.
And then once that happens at the beginning, they could receive all the other great things that we do for them.
So with all the horrors that have happened to some of the people, or all of the people, is it really realistic that you can recover? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what's so fun about it, because think about, okay, you have a child, I have a child. Think about your child that had never been given every opportunity that most kids get.
Right.
Like, oh, here's your breakfast, or let me teach you how I made that, or let's go clean up your room and let's go get you ready for school. Oh, you're so gifted and talented in this. You probably want to be an architect, or no one's ever been pointing that out to them.
Right.
So when you get them into that 9 to 12 month, that's all about that. Like just telling them, hey, you're still intact. What happened to you was not your fault. It doesn't, at all say who you're going to be. It's
Right,
something that's in
right.
the past, and you can choose whatever it is that you still think you want to be. And it's almost like reparenting. So we have a care team. We have over 50 women on this care team now, and they are women from the community, because the success of the program is highly being partnered with other people. It's not about, oh, Selah Freedom does it all and only by us, but we need you. You might want to come in and say, hey, girls, any of you have the desire to share your story? You could help them with public speaking. You never know what you carry that you take for granted that they've never even thought of before, and it's a gift to them to learn.
So I imagine you'd have to go through a process of,
For screening?
yeah.
Yeah, you have to go through a level 2 background check, and we have a huge volunteer screening process.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot of training. Yeah, to have people come in. But the beauty of what they do in Wellspring is literally, it's about building 4 corners for them out in the community, so that when the girls come out of the program, it's not, sometimes you hear people will like get out of jail after years and just try to get in trouble again because it's the only place they felt safe.
Right.
So what we do is we have these care team come in, and as they're teaching, whether it's baking cupcakes or knitting or how to make a bed, many of them don't know how to make a bed.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The things you don't ever have to do.
Right.
And we tell them, hey, every woman that comes through this home is safe. We have screened them, and you have the power within you to choose who you like. Just like in the real world, we wouldn't say, now you're going to be friends with you, and you're going to be friends with you. You would say, who are you drawn for? You start teaching them that within you, you have the power to choose. They've
Right.
never had a choice.
Right, and to start to learn how to trust themselves and other people.
Right. So you have this whole safe picking, and then they come in and they decide, you know what, I really like that woman. And they could say, hey, will you be one of my corners? And by the time they graduate, they have these 4 corners in the community that have invited them to their house for dinner. Do you want to go to the movies with me and my family? So they almost have 4 families waiting for them by the time they graduate that have made a commitment to be like mentors in their life.
Well, that's really nice.
cool.
Yeah. So have you ever, dealing with something so dangerous, so frightening?
Yeah.
Have you ever had a fear for your own safety?
Well, when we first started, yes, we were all fanatic. I couldn't even let my children walk the dog.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, he won't come back.
Yeah.
But we went up to Atlanta. The first time we flew up there and we spent a week with them, we were like, oh my gosh, could we let people know our names? Like we wouldn't let our last names be seen anywhere, and it was
Right.
this whole covering. And they're like, really? That's like the movies. They're like, they really don't care. These men, to them, these women are so disposable. So if one goes, they find another. In the over 12 years they've been doing it, they had one guy come after a girl once, and it was easy to contain. We're like, really?
Wow.
Really? So it's so sad that there's no real value in their eyes, any of these women.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we're okay.
So to people that want to get involved but don't really know how, what are the different options for them, or what would you say
There
to
are
them?
so many options. We've finally gotten it really buttoned up. We do a once a month connect meeting. So
Okay.
the second Monday of every month at 11:30, we have a connect meeting, which is a volunteer meeting that just says every single process that we have, every area that you want to volunteer, whether it's going out to, horse therapy with them once a week, or helping them with an art class, or just being a driver, or food, whatever.
Right.
So all kinds of volunteer opportunities, fundraising team members like that. And then if they decide what they want to do from there, they take the next step, whether it's coming on a team that I lead, or an outreach team that leads groups for the women, or the care team in the home. And we just keep next stepping them to see where they want to belong.
I can't imagine this is not anything other than an extremely expensive endeavor. I mean, it's a huge, long process. It takes a really long time. It takes a lot of people, a lot of effort. What is the
Yeah.
financial commitment?
Well, right now we have the gift of, we have a $250,000 matching gift, which is huge. So that is going to provide a lot of the housing needs. Right now, it's all been through private donations.
Wow.
And so the first house we opened, we were able to cover all the costs, and our staff is not getting rich by any means. So we
Right.
all take a very meager salary and work our butts off. But
Yeah.
it's more of it's a calling, it's a passion, it's something that
Yeah.
you see life being returned to people. So the volunteers are amazing. People just want to come and help. So if you learn how to empower people and their gifts, but with the $250,000 matching gift, if we get that, it enables us to fully provide more housing, the independent living stage that comes after our second 9 to 12 months. So
Right.
we just keep growing it and building it, and the funds have to keep coming.
Yeah, it's an incredible endeavor. Now, what have been some of the experiences that you've had that have kind of brought you the most joy or the greatest satisfaction so far?
Well, you know what? Probably there's so many. It's so funny. Like every time I go to the house or if I have a meeting with somebody, I walk away going, oh my gosh. And it wrecks me. I get moved to tears and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I'm going to ever not be like that.
Yeah.
But it's not ever tears from the sadness. It's tears from watching them be intact and have their lives back. So one of the women, we partner with Smart Horse Therapy.
Yeah.
Out in, way out in Manatee, which is gorgeous. And they're amazing people out there. And the first time that the girls went out, I went to the house that night to talk to them, and one girl goes, Elizabeth, I don't know what happened. She said, but, they said horses don't typically bond quickly, and when they do, they sort of, will put their leg up to show that they trust you.
Aww.
And she said, the horse did that with me, and she did it right away. And they were like, oh my gosh, that's so unusual. And she said, I just started crying. She's like, I was in there for 25 minutes crying. Because it's like this healing comes over them of, oh my gosh, someone can really love me, and this horse is safe with me. So just watching her share the joy she had from that day is still, it just wrecks me, because they weren't given those opportunities. And they're given these amazing opportunities now. So many different ways are people coming alongside with us and saying, can I help you? One girl wants to go to college. I had someone come up to me and they said, do you need help? Can I help provide some scholarships for school? And another girl said, I feel so unworthy. Why are people helping us? I've done so much wrong. And I'm like, oh, come on. You deserve this. You didn't deserve that. So it still just takes my breath away because they're so grateful. And they're like little kids. They're just ready to become something, who they're meant to be.
Oh, it's so exciting.
Yeah, so it's beautiful. Yeah.
So if you could share you didn't know, I know, you didn't know that this was going to be your calling. If someone told you this 10 years ago.
No, definitely not. We have people on our team that literally were living up in Michigan. They got their master's in this. When their husband got transferred to Bradenton, they're like, I want to go to DC or Chicago, man. I want to be in trafficking. And me, no, not even on my radar at all. But my heart has always been, I have my master's in psychology, and I've always believed in the deep inner healing. And I always felt like the reasons people stay sick are the secrets that they carry. So it sort of ties into the heart of what I've always believed. This is the ultimate, the depth is the sexual abuse that people carry for years has defined them. So I love just watching anybody walk into freedom. So it sort of ties in with what I've always loved.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Beyond what I ever would have thought.
It's incredible. It's really exciting what you're doing. It's so incredibly meaningful. I wish Selah Freedom so much
Thank you.
just growth and the ability to draw incredibly helpful people and to get the money that
keep
they
the
need.
volunteers coming and the donors. Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
I thank you so much for being a part of this.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us
On the Red Couch.